Hello and welcome to the show, but more importantly, welcome to this list. Look, let's be honest, who doesn't love a good old-fashioned ranking system? It's the backbone of our society. Top 10 movies, top 5 restaurants in your area, top 3 flavors of ice cream that definitely shouldn't include pistachio. We crave order. And what's more orderly than chronologically listing the 13 most ruthless dictators throughout history? This isn't your history teacher's boring lecture. No. We're diving headfirst into the lives of these tyrants, exploring their twisted ideologies, their insatiable thirst for power, and the devastating consequences they inflicted. We're talking about the kind of leaders who make you wonder if maybe, just maybe, that whole absolute power corrupts absolutely thing might have a point. So buckle up, grab a snack that pairs well with existential dread, and get ready for a wild ride through the annals of history's worst. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single horrifying detail. Welcome to our countdown of the top 13 worldwide tyrants. These leaders have left a significant mark on history, often through brutal and oppressive means. First up, we've got Genghis Khan, the OG conqueror who put the gen in genocide. Just kidding. But seriously, this guy was brutal. Born with a name that literally translates to ocean ruler, Genghis, much like a tsunami, swept across Asia in the 13th century, leaving a trail of destruction and, well, a whole lot of dead people in his wake. He united the Mongol tribes, which, let's be honest, is a bit like herding cats with anger issues, and then pointed them at everyone else. Seriously, the dude conquered more land in his lifetime than any other person in history. You know you're bad news when people are more scared of you than they are of the bubonic plague, which, coincidentally, was also spreading like wildfire during his reign. And sure, some might argue that he was a brilliant military strategist who ushered in an era of trade and cultural exchange. But let's not forget the whole massacring entire cities and building pyramids out of skulls thing. Next up, we're jetting off to Chile, where Augusto Pinochet, a man who apparently thought human rights were just suggestions, seized power in a military coup in 1973. Imagine this: a democratically elected government overthrown with the backing of, wait for it, the United States. Because nothing says freedom and democracy like supporting a dictator who throws his opponents out of helicopters. Pinochet's regime was like a masterclass in repression. We're talking torture, disappearances, and enough human rights abuses to make your stomach churn. But hey, at least the economy was doing well, right? Because apparently, that's all that matters to some people. So, if you ever find yourself in Chile and someone tells you to disappear yourself, just remember Augusto Pinochet, and maybe consider a quick trip to the embassy. Adolf Hitler. A name synonymous with evil, genocide, and that weird moustache that somehow managed to be both comical and terrifying at the same time. From his humble beginnings as a failed artist to his meteoric rise as the Führer of Nazi Germany, Hitler's story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition, extreme nationalism, and blaming all your problems on a specific group of people. He plunged the world into war, orchestrated the Holocaust, and left a scar on humanity that will never truly heal. His reign was a testament to the horrors that can unfold when hatred and intolerance are allowed to fester and grow. And the worst part, he almost pulled it off. Almost! Next, we have Hideki Tojo, Japan's prime minister during World War II, who, let's just say, wasn't exactly known for his pacifism. This guy was the mastermind behind Japan's expansionist policies in Asia, and he was instrumental in the attack on Pearl Harbor. You know, that little surprise attack that dragged the United States into World War II? Yeah, that one. Tojo's reign was marked by brutal imperialism, war crimes, and a level of nationalism that would make even the most patriotic American blush. He was like the human embodiment of a kamikaze attack. Reckless, destructive, and ultimately self-defeating. In the end, Tojo's legacy is a reminder that even the most powerful empires can crumble when they mistake aggression for strength. From the ashes of the Soviet Union rose a new kind of leader, one with a KGB background and a penchant for shirtless horseback riding, Vladimir Putin. This former spy-turned-president has been ruling Russia with an iron fist for over 2 decades, consolidating power, silencing dissent, and making Russia feel like it's stuck in a Cold War sequel that nobody asked for. Putin's reign has been marked by allegations of corruption, human rights abuses, and a foreign policy that can best be described as aggressive nostalgia. He's invaded neighboring countries, interfered in elections, and basically turned Russia into a giant game of geopolitical risk, with him as the only player. And the worst part, he seems to be winning. Now let's talk about Pol Pot, the leader of the Khmer Rouge and the man responsible for the Cambodian genocide. This guy took the whole Year Zero thing a bit too literally. Under his rule, Cambodia was transformed into a giant labor camp, where intellectuals were executed, cities were emptied, millions died from starvation, disease, and overwork. It was like a real-life dystopian novel, only with less hope and more mass graves. Pol Pot's regime was a chilling example of what happens when ideology trumps humanity, and his legacy is a stain on the conscience of the world. Next up, we're heading to France, the land of love, liberty, and, well, the reign of terror. And at the helm of this bloody chapter in French history was none other than Maximilien Robespierre, a man who took the whole off with their heads thing to a whole new level. This lawyer-turned-revolutionary leader was the driving force behind the French Revolution's most radical phase, a period marked by mass executions, political paranoia, and a distinct lack of cake. Robespierre believed that terror was a necessary tool to achieve virtue, which is a bit like saying you need to burn down your house to get rid of a spider. Sure, it might work, but at what cost? Now let's talk about Leopold II of Belgium, a man who proves that you don't need to be a dictator to be a tyrant. This guy ran the Congo Free State as his own personal piggy bank, exploiting its resources and people with a brutality that would make even the most hardened colonialist blush. We're talking amputations, forced labor, and a death toll that rivals some of the worst genocides in history. All for rubber, ivory, and the insatiable greed of one man. Leopold's reign was a masterclass in hypocrisy, with this so-called philanthropist presiding over one of the most horrific chapters in human history. Next, we're heading to Iran, where Ali Khamenei, the country's supreme leader, has been calling the shots for over 3 decades. This cleric-turned-politician has been accused of rigging elections, crushing dissent, and turning Iran into a theocracy where freedom of speech is about as welcome as a pork chop at a bar mitzvah. Khamenei's reign has been marked by a crackdown on human rights, a controversial nuclear program, and a foreign policy that can best be described as death to America, and not in the metaphorical punk rock kind of way. Speaking of controversial nuclear programs, let's talk about Kim Jong-un, the third-generation dictator of North Korea, a country that's basically a real-life Truman Show, only with more nukes and less Jim Carrey. This reclusive leader, known for his love of missiles, haircuts that defy gravity, and Dennis Rodman, has turned North Korea into a pariah state, isolating it from the rest of the world while his people suffer under a brutal dictatorship. Kim's reign has been marked by human rights abuses, a cult of personality that would make even Stalin blush, and a nuclear program that has the entire world on edge. He's basically the Dennis the Menace of international relations, only instead of a slingshot, he's got nukes. Next up, we have Idi Amin, the former president of Uganda, who was about as subtle as a sledgehammer to the face. This military dictator, known for his eccentric personality, love of self-proclaimed titles, and a penchant for violence, ruled Uganda with an iron fist, terrorizing his people and turning the country into a byword for brutality. Amin's reign was a chaotic mix of paranoia, megalomania, and sheer bloodlust. He expelled all Asians from Uganda, executed hundreds of thousands of his own people, and even kept the severed heads of his enemies in his freezer. Now let's talk about Philippe Pétain, the leader of Vichy France, a regime that proves even the most enlightened nations can succumb to darkness. This World War I hero turned Nazi collaborator willingly surrendered France to Hitler, betraying his country and sending thousands of Jews to their deaths in Nazi concentration camps. Pétain's reign was a shameful chapter in French history, a reminder that even the most democratic societies are vulnerable to the siren song of fascism and the seductive allure of power. Last but certainly not least, we have Saddam Hussein, the former dictator of Iraq, a man who proved that you can have a fabulous moustache and still be a terrible human being. This brutal dictator, known for his use of chemical weapons, his lavish palaces, and his uncanny resemblance to a Bond villain, ruled Iraq with an iron fist, crushing dissent, invading neighboring countries, and generally making life miserable for everyone around him. Hussein's reign was a textbook example of how not to run a country. He waged wars, gassed his own people, and turned Iraq into a regional pariah. Well, there you have it, 13 tyrants who left an indelible mark on history. From the steppes of Mongolia to the streets of Santiago, these leaders have shown us the very worst of humanity. But amidst the horror, there's also a glimmer of hope. Because by studying these tyrants, by understanding how they rose to power and the devastation they wrought, we can learn from the mistakes of the past and work to prevent them from happening again. So the next time you see a politician promising to make your country great again, remember these faces. Remember the cost of tyranny. And never ever be afraid to speak out against injustice, no matter how powerful the perpetrator. These tyrants have shaped history in ways that are both profound and devastating. Understanding their impact helps us learn from the past to build a better future. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more historical insights.